Hi there, Simon from simonwoods.com. I've got 11 Sauvignon Blancs to taste. I'm doing 5 now, 6 a bit later. I have to say that when you get loads and loads of wines to taste, one after the other, some of them are a real pleasure to do. I love tasting Burgundy. I love tasting, Chardonnay and Pinot Noir from Burgundy. Champagne is difficult. Sauvignon, I don't know what it is about it. I like one glass of Sauvignon. Second, I usually cope with the second one, but when you've got a row of loads and loads of Sauvignon, they do begin to pall. It's almost like a diet of continuous teeny music. One track, one Katy Perry track, good. More than one Katy Perry track, bad. Let's see whether we've got too much Katy Perry in this lot. I've got South Africa. This have been possible to split. I've got some French ones, I've got some Chilean ones, but this one I'm doing the ones from. I've got 3 South Africans to start with, 2 New Zealanders. So this is de Grendel Kutzhaus Sauvignon Blanc 2010 from the regions, the vineyards to the north of Cape Town. I think there's a bit of it that is down in the bottom end of this, Durbanville. I think there's some of it fruit from there, and some from Darling, which is a bit further north. But it is north of Cape Town, but it's reasonably cool because you're not all that far away from the Atlantic Ocean. I've had a problem with de Grendel wines in the past. Sometimes they're almost too green for their own good. Let's see what this one's like. Well, it's got a bit of that grassy green pepper edge, but it doesn't have too much of it. It's not like someone's squeeze green pepper. I mean, I don't know what happened when God invented green peppers. He should have just let them go on a little bit more and become slightly more coloured. Distinctive. Anyway, this one hasn't got the character there. It's got more citrus. Yes, just a touch of that green pepper, but not too much of it. If you'd asked me, I'd have almost said there was a bit of Semillon in there, because this quite bracing lime custard edge that I find in certainly some Semillons from South Africa, certainly Australia, and there's a freshness and a cleanness about it, but it's quite full-bodied. That's the weird thing that made me think about the Semillon. It seems to have quite a lot of richness behind. Maybe what they've done here, in fact I'm pretty sure that what they've done here is left the wine on the leaves for a bit, just stirred it every now and then, and it's added a bit of fatness, a bit of fresh. Certainly I prefer that to some of the de Grendel wines. I'd be rather happy to drink a glass of this with some mussels or something like that. Oops, I'll just miss my spittoon. Let's see what the next one's like. Iona. So we're in Elgin here. A lot of UK apples used to come from Elgin. Whether they still do, not sure. Anyway, Elgin, we're further south, and this Iona's run by a guy who I bumped into on Mayfair once wearing a kilt, as you do. He's called Andrew Gunn. Very nice guy, extremely tall. Different beast this. There's more of the gooseberry edge here. The first one was more on the ever so slightly shrieking citrus edge. Certainly a lot of lemon and lime, but with given richness by that lees stirring. Here it feels like there's the fruit has not been. I got a feel with the first one that they'd almost have to pick it slightly too early in order to keep that freshness and crispness. Here it feels like the fruit's matured a little bit more, so you're getting rounder flavours. Yeah, that gooseberry, bit of plum as well, green gauge plum, that end of the plum spectrum rather than the rather deep damson end. For me it's a more grown up wine. It's not trying as hard to shout at you. The first one wasn't too shouty, but this one just feels confident, it's got presence. Your mouth is felt, it is left feeling, that was a really nice flavour. There's a touch of apple in there, as well as these the green gauge and the gooseberry, but there's this rounded softness to it. I don't think it's ever been anywhere near an oak barrel, but there's an ever so slightly smoky tinge there. I like that a lot. Let's see whether I like Seven Springs. I think this is the first vintage for this winery. We are ever so slightly further to the what are we going, southeast here, so we're in Hermanus. It doesn't smell like it's sort of too showy a wine. It smells like it's confident in not being too upfront and in your face. Maybe the de Grendel was the one that had the most impact when you smell it. This one feels like there's a strange, almost like a bit of toffee there. There is this citrus and apple fruit behind it, but yeah, it feels like one of those wines that maybe isn't going to sort of jump out and impress a row of young, impressionable wine judges. I'm an old, impressionable wine judge now. But it will pass what I call the empty bottle test. I reckon if I put the Grendel and this on the table with about 3 or 4 people, this will be the one that was emptied first, because it feels like it's going to have that little edge of drinkability rather than that ever so slightly showy edge of the Grendel. Yeah, the apple character coming through really strongly. And it's Cox's apple. It's not like on that green Granny Smith's. There's this crunchy, crisp edge, but you know it's got that little bit more sweetness and ripeness than something like a Granny Smith. Let's see how this one gets on. Brancott Estate, which is now what we're going to have to call Montana, because apparently there is somewhere in the world that is called Montana. I've never come across it. Anyway, Brancott Estate, home of Montana, it says now, but we've got to get used to it. It's got both of them on. It's got Brancott at the top, Montana at the bottom. Anyway, 2010 vintage. And it's that smell that made people fall in love with New Zealand Sauvignon in the first place. It's got this, what I call essence of greenness. There's grass, there's lemon, there's green apple, but there's not too much of it. Sometimes New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc can almost just overwhelm you. But what I've seen in recent years in particular, and certainly among the top producers for longer than that, there's been a calming down in the shrieking, really, the ones that go way over the top of the treble clef, and yeah, a little more subtlety to them. This feels like it's going to be fresh and juicy and refreshing and invigorating, but it's not going to be too much of an assault. Let's try it. Yes, it's like someone squeezed a warm but wet spring day into a glass. Grassy, yeah, a bit of melon, bit of lemon, and this green apple. Really nice, tasty, honest wine. I mean, it's been, I can't remember how much it is now, let's have a look, £8.99. When I first came across this, which was 20 odd years ago, it was £4.99. Now, it was £5 to £9 in 20 years. Just think how much your house has risen in price in that time. And a wine like that hasn't doubled in price. Still really good value. All the ones so far have been 2010. Let's try this last one from New Zealand, which is 2009. Oh, it's one of those where the Stelvin's going to come off in one. No, it's not. Lawson's Dry Hills, the Pioneer. And it's because when they go to a pie shop, they put a Pioneer and a Pioneer and a... No, it's nothing to do with that. Whereabouts in Marlborough does it say? Sometimes Marlborough's now being... they're a recognised sub-region, so sometimes it'll say Arwatry, sometimes it'll say Wairau, and yeah, lots of places, which we will see more and more as the vineyards get older and the winemakers there get to grips with what grows best in different regions and how best to deal with it. Well, where the Montana was green and crisp, there seems to be an extra layer of flesh and richness here. Tropical fruit rather than that green crunchy fruit. It does have that spine of freshness, and there's something almost like blackcurrant leaf as well, a character I find sometimes in quite a few Sauvignons. I describe that as Sauvignon for Chardonnay fans. There's I don't know whether they've done just a little touch of malolactic to add a little bit of fatness and weight to it, but I get a buttery, toffee-like edge on the finish, and I think it'll have been on the lees for quite a long time. I mean, this is 2009, so it's coming up for its 2nd birthday now. We're in early January 2011, and I think quite a lot of that time in between now, yes, it's probably been in bottle for over a year, but it would have spent quite a lot of time on the lees, picking up rich, creamy flavours, and getting to be a weightier, maybe less extreme wine, but broader. I suppose that's like us all. We start off tall and thin, and then we end up being short and fat. But it's not too short and fat. It's still got this really spine of freshness, but it's got this quite a bit of flesh on it. Not too much for its own good. Tastes good. Well, having said that, I don't fancy tasting a row of Sauvignons. What I liked particularly about this, first of all, they're all good. And secondly, none of them, it feels like you're listening to the same track after track after track. 5 different wines. I'd say that and the Iona were my favourites, but the other 3 weren't half bad at all. See you soon.